The altcoins are crashing and the crypto markets continue their downward trend. What's next for crypto? First of all, the altcoin markets are very volatile. They can go up like rockets, but they can also go down in heavy corrections, as we can see right now. And if you're an altcoin investor like me, then it might be painful to watch to see all these returns going away. The bigger altcoins have been dropping by more than 40% in the past 2 weeks, while on-chain altcoins have been dropping by more than 70%. You might wonder if there is going to be any positivity for the altcoins or whether this trend is going to continue. Several factors need to be considered when we talk about the current correction, and that's what we're going to be talking about on why the altcoins are currently suffering. The first reason behind the crash is uncertainty surrounding the Ethereum ETF. It is approved, but it's not listed, which means that it's still not there. And I understand that it might be a little bit weird when it is approved but not listed, but it's important to take into account that there are two different parts to take into consideration and that there are two different parts for the approval process. First of all, we've got the 19b4 files. And you might say, okay, what's that? Well, the 19b4 files technically entail everything that is considered to be the ETF. Who's the custody provider? Is staking involved? What trading specialties are there or requirements? All the such things are involved in the 19b4 file. So these are the most important parts for the actual applicants to be approved, because that means that the ETF is rock and solid and compliant with the SEC. Now that document is actually approved at this point, and the question is, why is there no trading? Well, you've got the 19b4 files and you've got a second category of documents, which is the S1 files. So you've got the applicant and they need to file the 19b4 file, and you've got the actual exchange that's going to be listing the ETF, and they need to file an S1 document as well. That is still into consideration, and you need to make sure that the approval of the 19b4 file took a little while before it got actually approved. We actually saw that there was a big U-turn taking place in the week of the approval, which nobody expected to happen. Now, why is Ethereum important for the markets? Well, just like with XRP, which is also still waiting for a conclusion on whether it's a security, we are looking for the commodity and security discussion. If the US government is stating, and with the approval it's actually true, that Ethereum is a commodity, then there's a lot more things going to be happening within the Ethereum ecosystem, and you could say that almost all cryptocurrencies are a commodity. And when that is the case, it is going to open up the space to way more listings, to way more investments from institutions, and there is going to be a bigger outreach for interest into the Ethereum ETF to be building on top of it, as the BlackRock CIO explained that traditional market participants are moving away from permissionless permissioned blockchains towards more open source Ethereum blockchains to be used for tokenization, and that is everything surrounding RWA, a DPIN, all sorts of those things that are going to be big for the markets, and that are going to be a big market mover, in which BlackRock CEO Larry Fink also mentioned that that is going to be the big step forwards, and most of that is going to be built on top of a blockchain that is secure, decentralized and scalable, and Ethereum is actually manifesting that or trying to create it. Now, the thing with the approval of the Ethereum ETF is still on delay, which means that we've got the approval of the 19b4 files in May, and we're looking for the S1 files. And Gary Gensler has mentioned that the approval is going to come in the summer. And the summer is 3 months long, if you're looking at the technical aspects of a summer. And if you're looking to the Bloomberg watches, then they can see or they can say that it's likely going to be listed in the next 3 to 4 weeks before everybody goes onto their holiday. So if that is the case, and Gary Gensler also stated that there's going to be an approval coming in the summer, it means that there is a very high chance that we're going to have one in the next month, and that this is the final correction taking place on the markets before a big bull market is going to expand. If you go back in time, then you can also see that we've got the comparison with the Bitcoin ETF taking place, through which a correction took place after the listing has happened. So in this case, or actually after the approval, the Bitcoin ETF was approved, it marked the actual high, trading started, prices dropped until a 20% correction was over, and then the price almost doubled due to the interest into the crypto markets or in the Bitcoin ETF. So it doesn't technically mean that this correction is going to show that there's no interest into the Ethereum ETF. It also doesn't mean that the markets are going to continue in this downwards momentum, but it says that this Ethereum ETF is actually saying that we're continuing the downwards momentum based on the fact that we don't have the actual listing, we don't know the actual interest, and based on that, everything in the Ethereum ecosystem is currently suffering. Now, the second argument is that we've had a very, very big week when it comes to events taking place surrounding macroeconomic factors. So we had CPI, we had PPI, we've had FOMC, and we've had some other events taking place surrounding consumer sentiment during the week. Now, we've had CPI, and CPI is the Consumer Price Index, which is technically a measurement of inflationary data. So if the inflation is high through those numbers, then it is expected that the Fed is going to continue their policy of increasing rate hikes or increasing the interest rate and continuing the hikes. If the inflation is going to drop, then there might be a case of rate cuts happening, which means that there's going to be a bigger push coming into the markets, or more liquidity is coming into the markets. Now, PPI is the second one, which is technically CPI, but then on the producer side of things. So these two came out this week, and they are a big market mover in the sense that they decide, or they, at least based on that data, the markets predict whether or not the Fed is going to continue their policy when it comes to the interest rates. CPI came out and everything came out more positive than expected. So CPI came out lower on all four numbers: yearly, core CPI yearly, CPI monthly, and core CPI monthly was lower than expected. So the initial talks right now of the end of the inflation is definitely here. PPI had the exact same, which even became negative and was way lower than expected. And PPI is usually providing a number that's going to fight the CPI in the next few months. So it's expected that the data is going to go into the right direction, where we don't get a high inflation anymore, which means that there's a likelihood that the Fed is going to do their rate cuts, because they stated that they will be doing that this year. But by all means, Powell and the Fed became more hawkish than everybody expected, through which a negative impact started to take place in the markets, as especially crypto, as Powell became more hawkish. And hawkish means that they are not expecting a rate cut to be happening, or at least less than what they were expecting in the previous meetings, and less people from the Fed are expecting to get those rate cuts. Now, altcoins do flourish the best during periods of QE and low interest rates. So when the liquidity in the overall global economy is going to increase, when the interest rates are low, so it's easy to borrow your money as well, or it's very cheap to do so, those are the periods where you can expect the markets to do really well. And that's the period where altcoins are doing great. That's also what we have been seeing in the previous cycles, when we had that actual volatility going up for the altcoins. Now, if that is not going to be the case, it has a tremendous impact on the markets, and an additional impact on the markets, because after the event took place of the FOMC, the strength on the DXY continued. So the dollar became stronger, and also the interest rates started, or the yields on the US Treasury bonds started to drop, but the dollar became stronger, the likelihood of rate cuts has decreased, and overall that has an impact on the cryptocurrency markets, as crypto is still a risk-on asset. Additionally, the ECB has actually decided to do a rate cut, and when doing a rate cut is signaled as something weak, through which that had an even stronger impact on the dollar, and through that stronger impact on the dollar, we know that the crypto is currently showing a lot of weakness. Now, what does that say, and when is the reversal actually going to happen? Because the drop is not going to continue, as the likelihood of strength is pretty surely going to come with the Ethereum ETF. And when there's more clarity going to come on the actual listing of the Ethereum ETF, it is very likely going to provide a lot of interest. And you need to make sure that when we're looking at the markets at this point in time, then you need to make sure that Bitcoin is currently around or above an all-time high, where Ethereum is still 30% lower than the actual all-time high of 2021. And not even discussing most of the altcoins which have not been seeing anything close to an all-time high and are technically still on an altcoin cycle low. So days continue to crash because there's a less confidence in the crypto markets, but that crypto confidence is going to come through the Ethereum ETF, and that's why the reversal is on the horizon and very shortly here. But in that aspect, I need to show you the charts to explain what I'm seeing in those charts and when I'm expecting the actual reversal. The technical aspects that you need to watch, I'll show you a few. Bitcoin dominance is the first one, and as you can see, it's continuing to show a lot of strength in terms of Bitcoin is doing really well, right? So since the actual low in January 2022, actually since May 2021, the Bitcoin dominance continues to show strength, which is this current resistance level that we see here. But it technically shows that altcoins are suffering at this point in time and that Bitcoin is continuing its momentum. If we go back in time, we had a peak in September 2019. From there, we had the first fall pre-halving. Then we had a surge upwards of the Bitcoin dominance due to the halving. Then we had a big crash and a final correction where the Bitcoin dominance peaked in December 2020, 6 months after the halving. Now, I don't think that there is much data that is going to be coming out of this because everything is surrounding the strength of Ethereum. And different segments were moving in this part. DeFi summer in 2020 took place, through which currently we only have Solana meme coins doing well, and we are looking to get ourselves into a peak of the Bitcoin dominance. So if the Bitcoin dominance is going to be reversing back up, which is a move like this, that is when we can continue to show strength in the altcoins, and that is the first thing you should be watching. This is heavily in line with the current strength or weakness on Ethereum against Bitcoin. So it's currently approaching the first important level of support, as we have witnessed the first area of a bounce upwards. And what we want to see is we've had this push, correction, and fell through it. What we want to see is that this higher time frame level at 0.051 to 0.049 is going to hold as support. And if that is going to be the case, then we can actually say that this is going to be the next move alongside the approval of the S1 files, alongside the listing. And what we can say is that if this one starts to move, then a multiplier can be shown on the altcoins where they continue to surge as well. As you can see, Chainlink has been getting into a move from 2000 towards 2800 sats during the period that Ethereum got in approval of the actual 19B4 files. So Ethereum against Bitcoin moved by 27%, but Link against Bitcoin moved by more than 40%. So you can see, if you go back into Arbitrum against Bitcoin, for instance, it has shown a similar move, but it's likely to have a bigger move taking place than Ethereum because of the fact that everybody will be using those. And that means that given we've had such a big correction taking place, that there is an actual reason to be investing into coins like this. Now, macroeconomic factors to take into account. If the dollar continues its surge above this crucial level, that is bad. So you need to watch the area around 106. And if we reverse back down, that's going to be great. That's going to be the big trigger for the markets, where we're going to find ourselves into a surge. As you can see, the previous peak on the dollar was the bottom on Bitcoin. Since then we started to surge. When was the actual recent peak on the markets for Bitcoin? That was here. So once this one starts to fall down again and it starts to show that the yields are going to fall, you can see peak 6th of June, 30th of April, there was the actual move of Bitcoin going up, and now we reverse back down. And if the yields are continuing this downwards movement, which is already showing strength, as here we had the peak on the yields, which was in line with the strength of the dollar. Now we see the weakness on the yields, but the dollar needs to remove, which we expect the next week to be happening, and that is when crypto is going to do well. The final thing that I want to show in this regard is that if you're looking for a strength or weakness on altcoins, and if you're unsure whether you should be continuing to hold, then you need to go back in time. Solana has shown a big move during the actual accumulation year of the bull market, or the period of the halving taking place. And we've had a surge of more than 600%, and we dropped by more than 80%, close to 90%. People held through this, and it feels like it's the same period right now. Arbitrum is down 80%, Optimism is down 70%, but this is not the time to start selling your position. Bitcoin dominance is still high, which means that there is still a lot of upside to be made in altcoins, and if you were able to hold on through this period, then the next thing you could get is a 10,000% return, because that is what Solana has provided. And that is most likely what we can see from many altcoins. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.